Hey guys, welcome to the 9th episode of Scary Reddit Stories, where I get scary stories from r/true scary stories and Reddit. Quick disclaimer, none of this content is meant to be offensive or stolen, so like, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Enjoy. This story was posted by u/Karma Kong a few years back. My GF at the time and I had went to bed. About an hour after falling asleep, we were both awoken almost simultaneously. Not sure if I woke her up or vice versa, but one of us started yelling "WTF is that?" Not sure if it was her or me. We both immediately leapt out of bed, ran out of the room, into the living room and to the front door where we turned on all of the lights. I asked her what happened and why she bugged out like that, but she said it was me that woke up and bugged out. Her roommate came out of her room and was like, "What's going on? Are you guys okay?" We were both out of breath, freaked out, looking around, not sure what just happened. We said we were fine and sorry for waking her up, and the roommate went back to bed. We decided to sit out in the living room with the lights on for a little while to calm down. After a few minutes sitting there and the adrenaline wearing off, I noticed a pain in my back. I went to the bathroom to check it out in the mirror, and no lie, I had two pretty deep scratch marks on my back that were bleeding. This freaked me TF out. The whole waking up suddenly and running out of the bedroom was such a blur. I couldn't remember if maybe my GF was grabbing onto me and somehow scratched my back. I asked her about it and she did not remember doing that, but couldn't be sure. Eventually we decided to go back to bed, and slept through the night with no other issues. I try not to think about the whole series of events, but sometimes I do and I get the feeling that something evil chased us out of the room that night. This story was posted by u/Grown. 15 years ago I attended a college in a historical downtown area in Savannah, GA. One late afternoon, I was walking back to the dorm. It was my birthday, so I was really excited to get back to my room and meet up with friends later. I was walking and thinking about my plans for the night, then I heard some cat calling from behind. A group of men in a large beat up black van drove by me, slowed down and hung their heads out the windows to leer and yell at me once they got my attention. I was more pissed off than scared, mostly since it was broad daylight with lots of other cars and people present. I just tried not to avert my eyes from them and glared back to let them know I wasn't frightened. They laughed and sped up, turned a quick right in the cross street in front of me and drove off. A minute or two goes by and the van comes back from the same side of the street and slowed down beside me. That took me off guard. What the hell are they going to do? It was 3 p.m. Cars and people and even a few police cars present as well. I tried to ignore them, but I was getting more flustered and anxious. One of the guys leaned head out and spat on the ground next to me and then drove off again, turning down the street in front of me again. I realized they were just circling around the square so they could turn around and drive next to me again. I was getting really close to my dorm and I started speeding up the pace. Once more, they drove next to me again, but instead of slowing down they kept going, and then they stopped a couple hundred feet and parked on the side. Now I got worried. I kept telling myself they weren't going to do anything with people and police cars around. I figured it wasn't worth it, whatever it was they were trying to do, and I ducked down another street near a convention center. When I did, the van abruptly left and drove off again. I went through the convention, waited a couple of minutes, exited and turned down the sidewalk that led to the main street. I didn't see them, so I figured I'd beeline across a small walkway with stairs going down to a lower path that led dorm the other side, so home stretch. As I crossed the street, I saw the van with all the doors open and no one inside. I try not to stop, afraid the guys might be hiding behind it, and just made for the walkway. One of the guys popped out and said, "Hey, I gotta talk to you. How was your trip from Mississippi? We tried calling you, but you wouldn't answer." I was in panic mode and just booked it past him and luckily saw a group of other college students coming up the walkway. I waved them down like we were all friends. The dude immediately went back into the van and drove off. The students asked if I was okay and what that guy was up to and if he was selling drugs or something. Coming to realization that yeah, maybe that was it. Just a really shady and aggressive, out in broad daylight drug deal with a 20-something college student. I said the guy followed me here and that there were others with him, but when he drove off it appeared empty. So where were the other guys? Back in my dorm room, I calmed down and waited for my roommate to come back from class. She was a bit freaked out by the whole thing and asked if I still wanted to go out for my birthday, which I did since I would be around people and my friends. We all went to a local bar pizzeria and I told the story, which got the attention of a friend's boyfriend who works part-time as a security guard for a hotel nearby. He said he'd heard about a group of guys trying to pull a girl into a van who managed to get away and no one got the license plate to report it to the police. I started taking the college bus after that. I never saw the van or those guys ever again. I'm nearly 40 now and I still think about them and what could have happened and how possible abductions can happen in public areas, in broad daylight and close to home. This story was posted by u/Anita-Derange. I'm on mobile. Sorry for formatting. Growing up, my very southern family always gathered at my grandma's. She's had 12 kids including my dad and they all adored her. She lived in a large 4-story, basement and attic included, house that was built in the late 1800s. I remember always being creeped out inside her house. I never got the danger vibes from my own homes. We moved a lot, nor at any other homes I visited. We as a family unit probably on average went to my grandma's 3-4 times a week. My dad was kind of the caretaker of the home, as he maintained it for her and the family. I have many creepy stories about this house that I myself experienced and tales from other family if anyone is interested. The only death that I know about was my granddad has passed in the family room. My grandma would always scoff when I told her I was afraid. Even laughed at me, until one night she just up and left the home and refused to go back. She sold it within a few weeks after fleeing. That's enough backstory for now. My sister, 11 at the time, and I, 13/14 at the time, were in the kitchen doing homework. The kitchen was situated between the dining room on one side and had a large doorway into the mudroom, and the mudroom had the back door on one end and a basement floor hatch on the other. You could see both the back door and basement hatch from the kitchen table. When we had sat down I'd noticed the hatch was open. There was someone whistling something down there. It was a song I knew, but right now at this time I just can't quite place it. I just assumed it was my Uncle Mike. BC he spent a lot of time down there as it was basically like an area to work on stuff. It was filled with a workbench and random house stuff. There was no way to the outside from the basement, not even a window. It was all underground. Just steep creaky wooden stairs to the main room and one door to the furnace room. My grandma and mom were in the main living room chatting. After we'd been at it for an hour, maybe a little longer. The whole time I heard someone whistling off and on and movement and a little banging from downstairs. My dad and my Uncle Mike come in from the dining room area. I was surprised to see Mike, because I had thought he was downstairs. They grabbed something to drink and were talking about how hot it was outside. They were kinda dirty and sweaty. I asked my dad what they were doing. I'm pretty sure they were doing yard work. Just can't remember what specific yard work chore it was. I asked who else was here. My dad told me that it was just grandma, mom, dad, sister, brother, baby, Mike and myself. My sister and I must have looked alarmed. I had noticed there was nothing coming from the basement now. Just total silence for a few seconds. None of us spoke either. My dad asked what was up. Is there anyone in the basement? I remember asking. My dad gave me a look. All of the grandkids were terrified of that house. He shook his head and left. My uncle shrugged his shoulders and looked at the hatch. I don't remember leaving it open. I'll ask mom if she was down there again. Mike took off for the main living room behind my dad. I asked my sister if she's heard anything coming from the basement and she told me she had. She's heard the same whistling, the same rustling about. I wish I could remember the tune. I used to, but I'm 32 now. I wanted to see what down there now, if there is anything. We head down the stairs and you can't see into the basement until you're about halfway down. So it was a very anxious few seconds. My heart was thudding. I just had a heavy feeling in my chest. It felt like someone was watching me. There was no one down there. Nobody. Nothing looked disturbed. Everything was in its proper place. The furnace door was open. It was dark in there. Very dark. My sister was about to knock her way out of there. I asked her to wait. I was gonna see if anyone was in there. I had to know. I pushed the door all the way open and looked in. It was so dark. There is nowhere to hide. Just a small dusty room with a furnace and a hot water tank in it. As soon as I'd pushed the furnace room door open, the hatch slammed shut. The basement light dimmed. We both screamed. I felt like my chest was caving in. My sister had been right behind me with her hand on my back the entire 1/2 minutes we'd been down there. You can hear when someone is walking through the living room, dining, family room, kitchen. It was an old house. You could nearly see when even my baby brother walked. You could see the floorboards moving and it sounded like a herd of elephants when more than one person would walk. We had heard no footsteps. We ran up the stairs as fast as we could. My heart was thumping so hard, and it opened easily. We flew out and slammed the hatch down and locked it. There was no one in the mudroom either. We ran to my mom and grandma like our lives depended on it, and asked if my dad or Mike had snuck in there. My grandma was very no nonsense. She told us nobody but us were there. In fact, she goes on to say that when my dad and Mike had gone through, they had told her they were leaving for a little bit. She wouldn't have played along with a joke like that. We told them what happened. My grandma shooed us away. She would never listen to us. She would tell us not to work ourselves up, not to be afraid of an old creaky house. My dad and Mike were gone for an hour or so after the fact, so I know they did go somewhere. After that my sister and I went and finished our homework on the front porch. I was so scared back then. I'm an atheist now and I don't really believe in the supernatural, so it still bothers me to this day. I have experiences from that house that I just can't explain. I have a co-worker that just hired in and he whistles all the time while he works. It had me thinking about the ghost whisperer lately. I never heard it again and my sister and my brother heard him a few more times. Thanks guys for watching. Bye.